Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Pohl sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we are going to be talking about the day we've all been waiting for. The Chicago Bears have a new head coach and a new general manager, and now building the staff has started. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. This is honestly one of the best deals in town. I know nobody likes to travel to Rockford in the winter, but trust me, it is worth it. So make sure you head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Oh, man. The news came a fast and the news came a furious. We now have a general manager of the Chicago Bears and a new head coach. And I'm just going to get it right out of the way. We went from Ryan and Matt to Ryan and Matt. Dorp, dorp.
Okay, you know what? I was literally just going to do the same thing. I was going to get out my we got Ryan and Matt joke out. So here it is. For those of you who have seen the last episode of Star Wars, no, not the TV shows. I'm talking about Rise of Skywalker. Somehow, Ryan and Matt returned. Okay, I'm done.
So first we wound up with Ryan Poles, who was not one of the names that we were hearing early on. You know, we had talked about it before. We were hearing Morocco Brown was a hot candidate, Omar Khan. We heard a lot of names, and Ryan Poles, and I don't know how many times I'm going to say Ryan Pace when I mean Ryan Poles. So bear with me because this is going to trip everybody up. But Ryan Poles was a name that sort of popped up late in the process of, oh, hey, they're going to interview this guy. And if you believe certain reports out there, all five of the search committee members, so it's George McCaskey, Bill Polian, Ted Phillips, Soup, and Tanisha. All five of them ranked Ryan Poles as their number one candidate, if the reports are to be believed. That's a good thing. He's young, very young, 36 years old. He's only been with one organization, the Kansas City Chiefs, but he's worked under several GMs and risen through the ranks. If you believe reports, he was essentially on his way to Minneapolis to sign to be the general manager of the Minnesota Vikings. And we, just like Justin Fields, we swooped in and took their plans out from under them.
And by swoop, you mean George McCaskey put on his rah-rah jock Bears jacket and picked him up from O'Hare Airport.
His George Costanza outfit.
Yeah, I like to think that he was on his way to Minnesota and George McCaskey told the plane to land in Chicago, and he's like, wait a minute, this isn't Minneapolis, and George just shows up. Hey.
He brings him to Hallis Hall, pats his hand on the building, goes, we can fit a lot of bad football in this baby.
I mean, it was kind of weird how this popped up because, like you said, he wasn't really on the radar I mean, obviously rumors are rumors and things happen behind the scenes, which, goes to show that you can hear all the rumors in the world and it doesn't mean it's true, or it doesn't mean that there aren't other candidates being out there. But, here is Ryan Poles, and when they got him, obviously the leak was that video of O'Hare Airport, and then, soon after we heard that he was the guy. He had already the burden of hiring the next head coach. So they brought him in, and it's like, all right, well, now you have to hire the head coach. And as far as we've seen from the reports, if they are to be believed, that this was his choice. So he right away had to make a very big choice. I mean, his first big move as Bears general manager was hiring a head coach, and it all came together pretty quickly, I'd say.
All of that came together really quickly. And what's funny is the Bears are so secretive about everything. So they must have been high on Ryan Poles, because they sort of tried to slide him in there, like, last minute, like he wasn't their leading candidate or somebody they were really interested in. And then they secretly bring him in for a second interview. But George McCaskey shows up in what's the opposite of incognito. And he shows up and he gets caught by a fan at the airport, just on video. It'd be like, yeah, George is picking him up from the airport. At that point, who didn't know that he was the candidate? Like, what time did he pick him up?
Wasn't it sometime at night?
It was like, wasn't it like super late, like midnight?
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. It kind of reminds me of the Simpsons episode where Homer goes in for the news network to spy on the Quickie Mart, and they pull up in the van labeled unsuspecting van, and he goes in with that giant camera hat.
Man.
But I mean, if George McCaskey was going to go and pick up this guy, you pretty much had a feeling that he wasn't leaving Chicago. Like, you don't go and pick up this guy if you don't intend on hiring him.
Yeah, so we all knew. Well, I mean, what's funny is it was hours until anybody confirmed that Ryan Poles was going to be the new general manager.
Mm-hmm.
After we saw this video, we all saw this video, and everyone's just like, this means he's the GM, right? Like, it's not official, but like, this is, you're not George McCaskey going to pick up somebody just for a random interview. Like, this is the guy, right? And nobody wanted to say it. And then finally I said it. I'm like, well, that was pretty obvious. I think it was so obvious that we were second guessing ourselves.
Right. I also want to know too, and I think others have asked this question as well. Did Ding Dong George bring the limo to the airport? Or was Ding Dong George just in his car? Or did Ding Dong George Uber over here? Yeah, I Ubered here. Would you mind, covering us for the Uber back, please?
I figure we could go splitsies on it.
We could stop somewhere and get a pretzel. I think there's an Auntie Anne's right down there.
He's like, we shouldn't shop at this one because the one at the Oasis is like 50 cents cheaper. But do you think George picked him up in his Corolla?
He might have. He might have.
I literally told my wife, I was like, she was in the shower, and I'm like, hey, the Bears owner basically went to pick up a guy for an interview dressed like George Costanza. And she goes, I think that's nice. And I was like, he was wearing Bears shoes. She's like, all right, that's a little weird, but I get it. And I was like, I think he probably brought the Corolla. And she goes, oh God, please don't tell me he's got a spoiler on the Corolla.
Well, it's like he's trying to be hip, like, oh, like I'm like Mark Cuban guy. I'm hip and I'm going to pick up my guy and, we're going to have a jolly good time as we drive to Lake Forest.
Oh man. Do you think he got through Portillo's drive-through on the way?
Yeah, maybe he said, we can get some cheese fries or some onion rings and a cake shake or something. What do you want, Ryan? If you haven't been here before, let me tell you about Chicago-style hot dogs and beef.
You don't put the ketchup on it. You ask for the ketchup on the side, or they'll yell at you. I'm going to let you in on a Chicago secret. Do you know what the secret ingredient in the Portillo shake is?
I'll let you in on a Chicago secret.
Oh, man.
Well, Ryan, if you remember, Ryan Pohl was actually in camp with the Bears back in 2008.
Yes, he was. As an offensive lineman, and did not make the squad, but it was an undrafted free agent signing by the Bears.
Yeah, so it kind of came full circle. Here he was just on the, in camp with the Bears, 2008, well over a decade ago. And now he is the highest football man in the organization.
Can I point something out that may be true, maybe not? All conjecture, possibly. So he rose up to the ranks, and a lot of this organizational success with the Kansas City Chiefs was due to the Bears taking Mitch Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes. If the Bears would have taken Patrick Mahomes, they might have been saddled with Mitchell Trubisky, not had the success. They had the turnover. He moves on to another organization, doesn't go up as high. We might have, by hiring Mitchell Trubisky, put this all into motion. It's like the butterfly effect.
You mean hiring Ryan Pohl?
Yes.
Hiring Mitchell Trubisky. When did we do that?
Yeah, we drafted Mitchell Trubisky, and all this led to Ryan Pohl getting hired. It is like the butterfly effect.
Well, the Bears cut Robbie Gould back in 2015. So now in 2022, he could hit a game-winning field goal against the Packers. It's the only way we were going to beat them. It's like George McCaskey hired Dr. Strange, and he said, there are 10 billion different scenarios on how we can beat the Packers. And how many do we come out on top of? One.
My favorite of the memes had Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams like doing the pose like for the Last Dance, and they had Michael Jordan, but they put Robbie Gould's face on it and said, and I took that personally.
Yes. That was great. And I just want to say, I am laughing so hard that they tried to pull Last Dance in Green Bay. As great as Aaron Rodgers is, you won one Super Bowl over a decade ago. Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Phil Jackson were at the end of one of the greatest dynasties in modern sports. You're really going to try to pull a Last Dance? Please.
Like, there's a very good chance that if Michael Jordan decided to stay, we could have been talking about the Bulls 8-peat. And Aaron Rodgers officially has as many Super Bowl victories as Nick Foles.
Mm-hmm.
So shut up, Aaron Rodgers.
Let's just say we're not the only ones that have been dunking on him for over the past, 5 days?
No, what I
6
love,
days.
it has not just been Bears fans. It has basically been, if you took the United States map and you just cut a tiny, like you took a hole punch and just put it on Green Bay and hole punched out Green Bay, everything else just was dunking on them left and right. It was relentless. I loved it.
And like it wasn't just the Bear fans, it was everybody.
Yep,
And
it's everybody.
well, I mean, just think about it though. Not even just the Packers. You look at the Titans too. Both number 1 seeds gone. I think that's crazy.
I mean, the Titans were relying on a guy that had been out with a serious injury, coming back at 100%. And when he wasn't 100%, they went, well, this isn't working like we thought it would. Let's keep trying it. That was their own fault. They sacked the other quarterback 9 times and lost.
I mean, they were flawed. They were very flawed. Yes. It's obviously more shocking with the Packers because the Packers had the best team in football record-wise. You had arguably one of the top 3 quarterbacks. You could argue the best quarterback outside Tom Brady, maybe even better than Tom Brady. You could go back and forth. I mean, Tom Brady had more yards. Aaron Rodgers had more interceptions. Whatever. You're either the number 2 or you're the number 1. He's the MVP, so we'll call him the best. You had him at home at Lambeau Field, and you scored 10 points. I don't want to get too big of a tangent, but I'm just saying, like, that's your last dance. Come on, man.
It's funny because you look at that Packers game, and if you dissect any of the metric or any of the box score, anything just factual without watching the game, you just look at the box score and you're like, oh yeah, the Packers probably dominated this game. And no, they lost. They lost the turnover margin. They held running backs to under 55 yards. They held the quarterback down to nothing, and they didn't turn the ball over at all. And you're just like, how did they lose? Like, oh, you forgot about special teams.
Yeah, I mean, you have your field goal unit get blocked at the very end of the first half, and then you give up a game-tying touchdown after your punt was blocked. And when that punt was blocked, there were 4 49ers where that ball was sitting and 0 Packers. So it was the easiest touchdown you can imagine for the 49ers. And then, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't look good at all in that game, but he made a couple of big plays on the final drive. A drive that happened after Aaron Rodgers tried to play hero ball. He had Lazard wide open in the middle of the field. He decided to throw deep to Devontae Adams, who had 2 guys on him. I mean, it's stuff like that that loses you games. And, the Packers scored so easily on the first drive. It looked like it was going to be an absolute blowout. And then since then, the rest of the game, they scored a grand total of 3 points. And I think they went 3 and out on a majority of their drives after that. So it's not like they kept driving into, the other territory and just couldn't score. I mean, they weren't really doing much on offense at all, especially in the second half.
Yeah, it was definitely a poor performance by the Packers. They should have just run away with that game, and they ended up losing. They have nobody to blame but themselves.
No, you don't. Before we get back to the Bears, because this affects the Bears, I wanted to talk about this on this show, but since we're on this tangent, let's talk about it just right now really quick. We don't have to make this long. We have a lot more bigger Bears things to talk about, but I'm going to ask you this question again. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be there next year? Are the Bears going to have to deal with Aaron Rodgers in 2022?
I'm going to say
I don't think he's going anywhere personally.
Yeah, I want to say he's not going anywhere, but I look at that cap situation and they've got a lot of work to do if they're going to get under the cap. And
they got work to do, but it is projected to go up.
They're aren't they significantly over the cap?
I mean, it's not good. It's not good. But as other NFL experts have said, with the cap going up, even just aside from the cap going up, you find ways to make it work.
You do, but you eventually you got to pay the piper. And that is the case of the 2022 New Orleans Saints.
Oh, they are in deep doo-doo.
They're like $40 million over the cap. They don't have a quarterback. Their coach retired. They're in trouble. And the Packers are going to, if they try to bring this back for one more go round, they're going to have to pay the piper at some point, because the only way to do that is to kick the can down the road.
Right. Now, the way I see it is, I've given a different length of time each time we've talked about this in terms of him staying in Green Bay. I feel like we're at the point, because of this situation, I feel like if Aaron Rodgers does go back next year, I feel like last year is more than likely it if he does go back. Because after that, you have a year which I believe could be voided, and they're going to be in cap trouble, and you've already started the clock on Jordan Love's time, on his service time, on his rookie contract. And, I think that it's clear to me, based on what I've heard, what I've seen, that the Packers would absolutely want Aaron Rodgers back. Now, at this time last year, or, maybe I should say summertime-ish last year, when we didn't know he was coming back for 2021, you could probably figure that the Packers were going to be done with Aaron Rodgers after this year, after they restructured it. But I think they've seen Jordan Love and they're like, we kind of want to keep Aaron Rodgers around as long as we can. So I think they try to give it one more go around next year. That's my prediction. They franchise tag Davante Adams. They're going to try to do what they can, but I don't feel like they could go beyond 2022.
I'm just going to point this out. I'm on overthecap.com.
Mm-hmm.
For 2022, without Davante Adams on the books, the Green Bay Packers are projected to be $40.134 million over the cap.
Ooh.
So they have Aaron Rodgers, Zadarius Smith, David Bakhtiari, Preston Smith, and Kenny Clark all making over $20 million apiece, with Aaron Rodgers' cap number next year being $46.67 million.
That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money.
So how do you do this? How do you make this work? I mean, I don't know how they do bring everybody back. They
can't bring everybody back. No way.
But the thing is
Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams have to be your number 1 and 2.
Okay, well, what do you do? Who do you get rid of then? Is let's say they franchise tag Davante Adams.
And that's going to be what, like $20 million?
$20 million. So that means they're $60.134 million over the cap right then.
Isn't it great how we don't have to worry about this?
Yeah, I
like
love
we're
it.
just speculating, but it's not our team. It's the team that's our rivals.
It's good.
Now, here's what I have to say is there's the Green Bay side of it. We talked about that. But what about the Aaron Rodgers side of it? If you're Aaron Rodgers, do you really want to leave? You dominate this division and you get first round buys every year because of that. And
do you, though, hear me out?
Okay.
Follow your friend Nathaniel Hackett to Denver and start afresh there with a solid defense, and Davante Adams comes with you.
On the surface, it seems like that would make a lot of sense. But keep this in mind, too. You're going to be competing with Justin Herbert, Pat Mahomes, Derek Carr, and other quarterbacks in the AFC. You're looking at Josh Allen. Joe Burrow, the competition's pretty tight.
It's true. But he doesn't want any of Justin Fields.
Well, boy, I can feel the meatball sauce oozing through you right now when you say that.
It is, while I'm waiting for the meatball sauce to heat up, I've got my big wooden spoon and clink, 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 mixing up the Kool-Aid.
And I mean, everyone's talked about Denver. And it makes a lot of sense. But we can also say this too. Denver's not the only one that could make a run at him. What if Pittsburgh does?
I'm going to throw something out there. What if Tom Brady announces his retirement and Tampa goes after Aaron Rodgers?
Now that would be interesting. Bruce Arians and Aaron Rodgers. That'd be very interesting.
Yes, and I'm going to just say this. While I think Tom Brady is probably starting to think about retirement, does he retire in the same year as Ben Roethlisberger?
Yeah, my gut feeling.
Does his ego go, nah?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of torn on the whole thing, because if you would have told me a few weeks ago, would you think Tom Brady would retire after throwing over 5,300 yards at the age of 44? I'd be like, no way, man. He's going to want to keep playing to the end. But you listen to him, though. The tone's a little different from him. It makes me wonder, maybe he's thinking about retirement more than we thought he would be at this point. Now, this is my opinion, too. And tell me if you agree on this. Had Tom Brady won another Super Bowl this year, you think he might be tempted to be like, you know what, right off into the sunset?
The guy is such a competitor. I could see it being easier to hang it up when you don't win than when you do. Because if he wins it, he's just like, well, I want to win another one then.
Fair.
I don't want to go out on top. I want to go out emptying everything I have. If I win, I feel like then I clearly had enough I could win again. But when he throws everything into it and he still loses, I think that probably might say to him, you know what? Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe it's time. I put everything I had into this. We didn't win. Maybe it's time.
Now, here's another thing that I think about. Let's say Tom Brady started to really show signs of decline. Let me read his stats on the year. Okay? Keep in mind, Tom Brady is 44 years old, and he is older than half the coaches now in the NFC. This year, he threw for 5,316 yards, most in the NFL.
Wait, I'm gonna put a asterisk on that number. That is over 1,300 yards more than any Bears quarterback has thrown ever.
You really had to do that? Damn it. Yeah, pretty sad, right? But that's how many yards, most in the NFL by a quarterback. He had more completions as a quarterback, 45. He had more touchdown passes than anyone else, 43. His touchdown to interception ratio at age 44 was 43-12. I mean, it's like, you are not on a decline numbers wise, dude. You are still playing like you're 30 and you're 44.
I mean, it's true. I mean, that he's played very well, and I don't know. We'll see. I'm still. I don't think he's hanging it up. I think he's coming back.
Do you think he comes back with Tampa Bay?
Yes.
I think so too. I don't see him going anywhere else. And I also feel like Gronk is a package deal. I feel like if Tom Brady does retire, I feel like Gronk retires too.
And Gronk was interviewed, and he was just like, he's like, if you ask me right now, I'd probably say retired, but he asked me in 2 weeks, I might feel differently. And that's clearly, I got to ask Tom what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. But it's stuff to think about because, as the Bears hire their head coach and their GM, it's a new regime. It's, you are on, let's see, Lovey, Tressman, Fox, Nagy, and now Eberflus. Okay. You've had 5 coaches over the entire starting career of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers starting in 2008. Lovie Smith was the coach. And then Mark Trestman came along. Then John Fox, then Matt Nagy, and then now we have Matt Eberflus. So you are now on your 5th head coach. And as of today, Aaron Rodgers is still a member of the Green Bay Packers. Whether or not Eberflus will face Aaron Rodgers as a member of the Green Bay Packers is yet to be seen. But as of today, even though the Packers have been eliminated, Aaron Rodgers is still a Green Bay Packer. Therefore, it is still the Aaron Rodgers era in Green Bay. So the Bears are now on their 5th head coach over that span. Think about that.
That's bad.
And 5 is exactly the number of wins you have against him in that whole time. That whole time. Lovie Smith beat him twice, 2008 and 2010 regular season. Mark Trestman beat him once. John Fox beat him once. And Matt Nagy beat him once. That is from 2008 through 2021. So 4 coaches actually coached against Aaron Rodgers, and 3 of the 4 only won 1 game against him. Yeah.
Well, it's different era. So I'm looking at, so Ryan Pohl's our new general manager. He's coming into this job. There's a lot to do because they've been bad the last several years. And I don't care if you tell me, but the Bears made the playoffs last year or the year, not this past year, but I'm talking about last year. And I don't care. That was an expanded playoff roster where you got dunked on by the Saints. Like you're not a real playoff team. This is not a good team. He's got a lot of work cut out for them or for him. But the good news is he's coming into this, wipes the slate clean with a brand new head coaching staff. He's got his quarterback of the future in place. And he's got to start off the bat like $30 million in cap space to spend. And I'm looking quickly at over the cap. If we get rid of Eddie Goldman, which I would say based on how much money he makes and what his performance was, that he seems like he could be
when he actually did play.
Getting rid of Jimmy Graham, getting rid of Danny Trevathan and Andy Dalton and Jermaine Ifedi. We don't need any of those guys. We're up to over $42 million in cap space.
That's good.
And you look at Nick Foles, and we could cut Nick Foles.
You do need a backup quarterback, though.
You need a backup quarterback, and he saves you $3 million. But are you going to get another backup quarterback for $3 million? You guess you could, but I don't know. I just sort of look at it as
I take Nick Foles being their backup, frankly.
Yeah, you could, if you get a backup that is around that kind of money, that's a veteran, you're going to get dog turds. He's going to be better than anybody in that price range.
Right.
Or you can draft somebody and groom them to be your backup, which we are limited in draft capital.
Don't waste the draft pick on a backup quarterback. You have other essential needs when you already have your franchise quarterback.
And then the free agents, we have Jason Peters, who I would not be opposed to them bringing back. Alec Ogletree, he played nice, but I think you can upgrade. Allen Robinson, not a chance. James Daniels, that's a decision you have to make. What kind of money is he going to want? Who could you get that would be better? Akeem Hicks, I think that bridge has been burned.
Yeah, I think he's gone.
And then a bunch of guys that, I don't know, maybe you don't care about. Christian Jones, Margus Hunt, Bruce Irvin, Demir Bird, Elijah Wilkinson, Marquise Goodwin, Cassius Marsh, Sam Mustapher, Artie Burns, Marquis Christian.
You replace those guys in free agency draft and bring them in on cheap deals. I mean,
Yeah.
that's all depth right there.
Bilal Nichols is a guy I would like to bring back.
I would too.
Deion Bush, possibly. Pat O'Donnell's a free agent. I don't care. Punters.
A punter's a punter.
Yeah. Alex Bars, meh.
Yeah.
Tease Tabor, no. DeAndre Houston Carson, I wouldn't mind having him back. Patrick Scales will probably be back as the long snapper. JP Holtz, if they bring him back, they bring him back. Xavier Crawford, Jesper Horsted, Ryan Nall, Joel Ewe Beanaway, and Latavius Simmons.
I'd bring Jesper Horsted back. I like him.
Sure. But I mean, honestly, there's not like big names that they have to bring back. There's a couple of guys. So you've got money to work with. You've got your quarterback.
What they don't have is draft capital. That's the one thing.
They don't have a first rounder. And they're probably going to, I guess they'll probably get that next year. They'll get the compensatory pick for Allen Robinson. So they're going to have for 2022, they have 5 picks. They have their own second, third, fifth, and sixth rounds, and an additional 5th rounder from trading Anthony Miller.
Ah, that's right. That's right.
So 5 picks.
So it's not like I guess me saying they don't have draft capital wouldn't be very accurate. It's just you wish you had a first rounder. But if Justin Fields is all that, then great.
Yeah. I mean, the hope is Justin Fields is who you think he is, and you don't even think about it.
Right. You talked about some of the guys that could stay, could go, and like you said, you're not looking at like a Devontae Adams type player, or you're not looking at Justin Fields coming off his rookie deal or Dave Montgomery. You're not looking at any of that. But I feel like probably the biggest decision that's got to be made of that group you just mentioned, probably James Daniels. I mean, he's a essential part of your line, but do you pay a lot of money for a lineman, or do you draft one? I think that's the question. That is
the question. And it's probably going to come a lot down to, what kind of money is he looking for?
Right. Exactly. I mean, let's be real. Free agents, in the NFL, they're going to cost a lot of money. And you got to look at your budget. You got to look at your needs, and you got to assess, the situation. The draft is, okay, are we going to replace these guys with draft picks? Are we going to re-sign some of these guys? Obviously, it's going to be a mixture of both. It's just who and where. Like, I think James Daniels is a worthy player to have going forward. Is it worth, though, giving him all that money if you could possibly replace him in other means?
Right. But going back to the recent news here is, so we have our general manager in place, and kudos to the Bears for making the move and hiring an African American general manager. That's big. It's big for Chicago, and I wish the guy all the success in the world.
Me too.
He comes highly regarded. And I hope all the success for him. And the first thing is, he comes in and he says, I want to interview the head coaches. And Lawrence Holmes was talking about it, that he was like, listen, is as a minority candidate, it's how much power do you have right off the bat? And don't blame him if he's not given the option to have full input on the head coach. And he ended up getting the full input, but if you notice, he didn't bring any additional candidates in. He only interviewed the ones that were already interviewed by the search committee. So I have a feeling that he was told, you can hire your guy out of this predetermined list that we already have.
That's what I've been wondering this whole time, was Eberflus Pohl's guy from the beginning? Was he given the choice to pick from those three guys, Caldwell, Quinn, Eberflus? Or did it just happen to be those three guys were the ones that were interested in the job? Really, in my opinion, is I look at the situation, and I'm going to tell you right now, if I would have given the choice, I would have gone with Brian Daboll. I'm not a football guy. I'm not an expert, so take that as an opinion from a fan, but that's what I would have gone with. And I am just a little surprised that he didn't at least get a second look from Ryan Poles. If it was truly up to him and he had all the power in the world to interview whoever, I would have thought that he would have been an option to interview. But you could also look at it this way too. Maybe Eberflus just flat out didn't want him for whatever reason. Or Poles didn't want Daboll for whatever reason. Or maybe Daboll wasn't interested in the Bears. I don't know. These are just questions I have.
That's a possibility. And from what it's worth, I heard that Brian Daboll didn't interview well. Didn't have answers for who his staff would be.
And maybe Daboll isn't going to be the guy we thought he's going to be as a head coach. You don't know.
It's every single failed head coach was a hot candidate for that job at some point.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And Sean, I want to do this really quick too while we're on this topic. There was, I'd say, a pretty extensive list of candidates, right? The Bears interviewed quite a few guys.
For head coach or for GM or both?
For head coach.
There was a decent number.
It wasn't huge, but it was a solid list, right, of guys. It wasn't just 1, 2, or 3.
No. But like I said, I was actually pretty excited about the list of general manager candidates. I was lukewarm about the head coach candidates.
Right, exactly. And I mean, that's the whole point, is that you felt like there was really no slam dunk, but take a minute to look at the other candidates. Obviously, your finalists, it was pretty clear: Caldwell, Quinn, Eberflus. But we talked about Daboll. We talked about the different things with Daboll that could have happened. Another guy was Byron Leftwich. And I personally think that Byron Leftwich wants a certain number of things. He's got his list of demands, and I don't think the Bears are ever going to meet that. So I don't think Leftwich was really going to be in the cards. Would you agree with that?
I don't know. What demands do you think he was going to have?
Well, did you hear earlier today how it looked like he was going to go to the Jags and then suddenly not so fast?
You
That he
know,
was interviewing with the Saints.
Trent Baalke is a problem. That guy. So like him going, hey, listen, I don't want to work with Trent Baalke. I mean, Jim Harbaugh didn't either. And, that he's problematic. So they ousted him. I think a lot of people were waiting for Trent Baalke to get fired anyway. So
Which
I
is
think
fair.
I think
Which is
that
fair.
that was probably a lot to do with it. Like, hey, listen, I like the job. I'm not going to work with that guy. And they weighed their options. They're like, this is the guy we like. And I'm sure they were going to have problems hiring anybody with Trent Baalke. He's got his own issues. And they probably just went, you know what, we're going to pull the trigger and fire this guy and bring in a general manager candidate. But I mean, is it official now that he's the head coach of Jacksonville?
No, because I didn't see anything on that. I heard that he's going to be interviewing with the Saints next now. So he might not even go to Jacksonville.
Is because I know that they were interviewing Vic Fangio. And if you bring Byron Leftwich with Vic Fangio, I think Jacksonville turns around a lot quicker than people thought.
Yeah, you're probably right. But you might have proven my theory wrong right then and there. And I mean, you make a good point about the whole situation with the Jaguars, but I think my point does still stand that I don't think Byron Leftwich was really going to be coming here. I don't. He'd been married to that Jacksonville Jaguars job, at least for a while now. And it didn't seem like it was in the cards. So all I'm really trying to say at the end of the day, whether my initial opinion was right or not, that I think Byron Leftwich he wasn't going to come here. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's how I see it.
That's a possibility. I mean, it's a strong possibility.
And there were other candidates too. Leslie Frazier was out, and I don't think anybody really wanted Leslie Frazier as the head coach here.
I think there was literally nobody in Chicago that wanted him as head coach. You could pull everybody's name that was even floated as a possibility, even if it was a rumor, and every single buddy else got at least one vote by a Chicago Bears fan, except for Leslie Frazier.
Yeah, exactly. So that wasn't going to happen.
Mike Singletary wasn't going to happen.
Oh God, no.
Can't win with them. Can't do it.
So, I mean, and then I don't think Todd Bowles either was going to be a strong candidate for this job for, various reasons. And, not saying Todd Bowles can't be a good coach in the future, but I don't think now was the right time to hire Todd Bowles. So what I'm really trying to get with all this is maybe if you could have brought in Brian Daboll, people would have had some different opinions. It's if at least they could have interviewed him a second time with the Ryan Poles. But if not, then your choices really were pretty much down to these groups of coaches that we just talked about, that small group of coaching. So
it's a weird
they made
time.
A choice.
There's no slam dunk, A grade head coaching candidates out there. And
Harbaugh was a pipe dream. Sean Payton was a pipe dream.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm talking general and in the NFL, like there is no grade A candidates out there for the job. And you also have a ton of teams that were looking for a new head coach.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. There are still plenty of teams that haven't hired anybody yet. And I'm forgetting to mention another name too, that was hot on the seat was, on that candidate list for a number of teams was Brian Flores after the Dolphins let him go. But I don't know about you. Tell me if you've heard anything. I haven't really heard his name being thrown a lot lately.
No, I don't think he's going to wind up with a job.
And I still believe there's more to that firing than we think. I think there's a lot more to it.
Probably because, at first it was like, okay, well, that's a weird owner. And there was some issues with who should be the quarterback. And then suddenly it's, well, why is nobody hiring him? The owners talk. People are getting the story, and there's probably more to it than
Ding Dong George is listening with a cannon string.
nobody wants to talk to him. He's got a glass put against the door. He's like, the cool kids are talking. I'm trying to hear what they're saying.
Ding Dong George. Anyway, continue.
So I'm assuming that they all talked and were like, hey, listen, not blackballing, but close to it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I haven't heard much lately at all. And it'd be one thing if a bunch of teams were in on him and you thought, oh, why can't the Bears get in on this? Nobody's really in on him right now. Not that I've seen.
Yeah. See, the Broncos got their guy. They hired Nathaniel Hackett.
Mm-hmm.
Houston hasn't hired anybody.
Nope.
Jacksonville hasn't hired anybody.
Nope, because Leftwich ain't official yet.
The Raiders still haven't decided if they're going to keep their interim coach or not.
Mm-hmm.
But the rumor is Josh McDaniel might wind up there.
I've heard that too. Yeah. The Dolphins haven't hired anyone yet.
No, but it's looking, from what the rumors are, Brian Daboll is going to be going to Miami, if that's the rumors are to be believed. The Vikings haven't hired anybody yet. And their list is very similar to the Bears. There's a few other names. Saints haven't hired anybody, but really they haven't had a chance.
Yeah, Sean Payton just retired.
Yeah. And the Giants haven't hired anybody. And according to the site I'm on, the Giants have interviewed Lou Anarumo, the Bengals defensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, Brian Flores, Leslie Frazier, Patrick Graham, and Dan Quinn, who is not going to be there. He's opted to stay in Dallas.
I can't help but wonder if Dan Quinn is staying in Dallas because he feels like Mike McCarthy is going to be on his way out, and that'll be a nice shoo-in on another chance.
Probably. I mean, if you're not going to get handed a job that you want, you might as well wait out Mike McCarthy.
Right.
But like, who from that list, get your blood boiling or, get you excited? The Vikings are interviewing Todd Bowles, Jonathan Gannon, the defensive coordinator of the Eagles, Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator of the Lions, Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator of the Cowboys, Raheem Morris, the defensive coordinator of the Rams, Kevin O'Connell, the offensive coordinator of the Rams, who doesn't call plays, Doug Peterson, and D'Amico Ryans, the defensive coordinator of the 49ers. So what other names are even out there being interviewed? Vance Joseph, Mike McDaniel, the offensive coordinator of the 49ers. He's interesting. He's a very smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Brown, the running backs coach of the Rams. Gerard Mayo, the linebacker coach of the Patriots.
Is good old Chris Tabor getting any interviews anywhere? He's
not gotten a single interview. Bill O'Brien.
Why?
I don't know, but I bet if Josh McDaniels goes, Bill O'Brien winds up as the offensive coordinator of the Patriots.
Yeah, maybe.
Josh McCown got an interview.
Yeah, I heard about that. Good for good old Josh McCown.
Hines Ward got an interview. Luke Getsy, the quarterback coach of the Packers. Eric Bieniemy. Those are pretty much the names of the candidates. I'm not. I mean, we all we're clamoring for Brian Daboll or Byron Leftwich. Those don't look like they're happening. So out of everybody else, I don't. We got Matt Eberflus. So who is he? Defensive coordinator of the Colts. 51 years old, and from what I hear, he comes from the Rod Marinelli tree.
Yes.
So the Tony Dungy, Lovie Smith, Rod Marinelli tree.
Well, are you surprised he's got associations with Lovie Smith? Look at his defense, 4-3 Tampa 2.
Well, I mean, those are base things. It's not like he's going to be running that the whole time.
I'm just saying, it makes you think of Lovie.
It does. I even heard people being like, they should hire Lovie as the defensive coordinator.
No. I no disrespect, but no. Sorry, Lovie.
I mean, so our friend Brad Spielberger posted these numbers. The Bears defense versus the Colts defense from this past season. The Bears ran cover 2 approximately 9% of the time. The Colts ran it approximately 15%. The 4-3%, the Bears were at about 3%, and the Colts were about 21%. But the Colts were in nickel about 77% of the time. So, basically, Matt Eberflus, not big on blitzing, but he's big on keeping everything in front of them, stopping the big plays, stopping the run, forcing everything underneath, and forcing a lot of turnovers. Yeah, every season that he's been with the Colts, they've been top 10 run defense, top 10 in turnovers, and that's good. And that's been with, not a star-studded defense. He was brought to the Colts by Josh McDaniels, and when Josh McDaniels opted to not go, Frank Reich decided to keep him and has kept him for 3 years and would have kept him, had he not been hired by the Bears. Like I said, out of the Rod Marinelli tree, he's going to run a 4-3 base defense most likely. Linebackers have great success under him. So Roquan Smith is probably salivating right now, thinking about what he can do with him. And listen to Rod Marinelli talk about him, and it sounds like he's a great motivator, great tactician, and a great teacher. You look at what his former players were posting about him today, and they just sing his praises.
Which is all very good to hear. I really liked what Rod Marinelli had to say about it, because I listened to his interview after it happened on The Score, and, you heard some really good things.
And I've heard some people talk. I've heard Peyton Manning talk. I've heard Tom Brady talk, not about this specific thing, but as being quarterbacks, that some of the best coaching they got were from their defensive coaches.
Yes.
Talking about, all right, well, here's how I would play you. Here's what in learning how they would be attacked, and that helping their growth. And, maybe that helps Justin Fields. Maybe.
Yeah.
I just think about, not all of us were in some part of our brain saying that, we wish the Bears would have gone with an offensive hotshot young head coach to really jumpstart this offense. But, you can't forget that Brandon Staley is a defensive coach, and it hasn't hindered Justin Herbert. And Sean McDermott is a defensive coach, and Josh Allen has really bloomed under him.
Mm-hmm.
But
Bill
Belichick. I mean, that's a hard one to compare.
Mike Shanahan.
Bill Belichick might be the the best coach of all time.
But
you
he is defensive minded
True.
first. I'm just saying.
True. So if you find somebody that is everybody's just going to play hard for and has high expectations of everybody coming in, and a good teacher, and you hope this comes around. And now the question comes is, who's going to be his coordinators?
Well, that's going to be the biggest thing of all, is if you want this offense to function at a high level and you want Justin Fields to develop properly, that's going to lie within the coordinators. I mean, how many times within NFL history have we seen high-powered offenses or high-powered defenses really be the work of the coordinators? I mean, the head coach is obviously the CEO of the team, but a lot of the elements and what is called and how schemes work is in the hands of the coordinators. So if Eberflus finds the right guy to be his offensive coordinator, then this whole thing could work with Justin Fields. I don't think that a defensive-minded coach is a death sentence for Justin Fields. You do worry about continuity, because if you get a great offensive coordinator, they're going to be hired for jobs in a few years as head coaches. I get that. But you hope that you could bring in somebody who's good enough, and then you kind of keep that good mojo going when you hire new people. It was a concern I talked about in previous shows that a defensive-minded head coach bringing in the right coordinators, you might have to juggle that a bit, because we saw it under Lovie Smith when you went through, what was it, Rod Turner and Mike Martz and all those people. But
I thought about this a little bit, what you're saying, and the continuity. Yes, I want continuity, and I'm worried about lack of continuity, but I'm less worried if it's lack, or they lose continuity because they have an offensive coordinator go on to a head coaching job. Because the reason why is, if somebody were to hire the Bears offensive coordinator to be a head coach, that means Justin Fields is being successful and playing really well.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
And if we get him playing well, then I'm less concerned about continuity. Under Lovey, the lack of continuity is because we just had terrible people, and for the most part, so we were just churning the bottom of the barrel offensive coordinators, and nobody was working. That's a problem. We saw that a lot under the Cutler era, and so it's, if we get somebody that ends up being a superstar, then cool. That means, if Brian Dable leaves, it's not like Josh Allen's going to be terrible.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. If Justin Fields gets to that elite level where he's trained, he's got the right guys around him, because that's half the battle, is having the right players around you in addition to the scheme, then it makes that transition a lot easier. You're absolutely right. So that's why these next few years are just so critical, because you need Justin Fields to develop into the star he could be. You need to establish the right system, and you need to get the right players around him.
I'm going to throw a name out there.
Okay.
For offensive coordinator.
Okay.
I don't think he has any ties to Matt Eberflus, and I don't think he has any ties to Ryan Poles, other than they all share superstar agent Trace Armstrong.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Brady. He was fired during the season as the offensive coordinator of Carolina, but he was the one that made Sam Darnold look good before he got a shoulder injury. He was the offensive coordinator at LSU when Joe Burrow's last year there, when they were just absolutely unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
I think he could be a good name to work with.
I definitely talked to him. If I were Poles and Eberflus, I would definitely talk to him. I know, wasn't the one guy from the Eagles being rumored as an option?
Kevin Patullo.
Yeah.
Here's my concern. And I'm hearing rumors that Jim Caldwell could potentially be.
Which I wouldn't mind, just for the
No.
record, because Caldwell, from what I've heard, seemed pretty enthusiastic about the idea of working with Justin Fields.
Absolutely.
And I do feel like his experience and his persona would be good for the team. But anyway, go on.
My concern is we get a Mark Trestman effect. And by that, I mean, Mark Trestman, look at the experience of his staff. Everybody was coming up a league and coming up positions. So Mark Trestman was going from the Canadian Football League to the NFL. He had a guy that coached linebackers in the Canadian Football League being his, assistant defensive coordinator or whatever. Like everybody was going up levels and up leagues. And that makes it really tough because you have an inexperienced staff. That's the reason that, they like with a Sean McVay, they were like, listen, who was this first defensive coordinator? My God.
For
the Rams.
Trestman?
No, Rams. Who was the Rams coordinator when they hired McVay?
The offensive coordinator?
No, defensive coordinator.
Defensive coordinator. I don't remember, honestly.
They hired a veteran defensive coordinator to pair with him. So like, hey, listen, you don't have to worry about all of this. You've got somebody that's been there, done that, and he's gonna be able to help you through this. We want you to focus on making this defense better. And when you look at Matt Nagy, same thing. They were like, we are going to pair you with Vic Fangio. You don't have to worry about the defense. He's bringing, and with the Vic on the defensive side, Vic Fangio had years of experience being a defensive coordinator, and everybody he brought with had years of experience at whatever position coaching that they had. And you didn't have that. Everybody knew how to do their jobs. And with Trestman, everybody was coming up a level. So they were learning how to be a coach at that position. Going from a linebacker coach to a defensive coordinator is a big, big jump. Everybody was taking a step up, and you didn't have anybody with experience doing that. You didn't have anybody that could help you in your transition because everybody was new. And that is my concern with Matt Eberflus, is because I'm hearing the names Kevin Patullo as his offensive coordinator and Dave Borgonzi as his defensive coordinator. And I don't want a whole staff of people being new at their coaching positions.
Yeah, and I agree with you, especially because your head coach is brand new at this. Like you said, you compared it to Mark Trestman. That was his first time and only time in the NFL as a head coach. And, we also just came off Matt Nagy, who was also first-time head coach. And that's fine. That can work. But no, you're right. I do want some experienced guys at certain positions in there. That's why I love the idea of Jim Caldwell. He's been coaching in this league at numerous positions, including head coach, for quite some time. And as I mentioned earlier, his enthusiasm about working with Justin Fields, I think, is very attractive. And I feel like he's going to bring that respectable type personality that these guys on this team on the offensive side of the ball could really, really use. I also think, too, that there's something to be said about bringing in a guy like Jim Caldwell, who's been at every level and has worked with, a multitude of different guys. He was with Peyton Manning. He was with Matthew Stafford. He's worked with good quarterbacks before. And yeah, Peyton Manning and Justin Fields are very different quarterbacks. We know that. And you could say the same thing about Matt Stafford, but he's worked with successful quarterbacks before. And I think that Jim Caldwell would be my number one choice right now. There could be other guys out there who are better, maybe, but of what I know, I would be perfectly okay with Jim Caldwell in that position.
Yeah, I would like Jim Caldwell. I'd be fine with Joe Brady. He's had that position both in college
I'd be fine
and
with
the
Joe
NFL.
Brady too. Yep.
I'm just nervous about having a somebody that's new to that position coaching.
You
the
can't
offensive-
have everyone experimental when you have to develop your most important asset you've ever had in Justin Fields.
Right. And the defensive coordinator I was thinking of, that was the Rams' first defensive coordinator when they brought in McVay, was Wade Phillips.
Wade Phillips. Okay.
So Wade Phillips was a former head coach, longtime defensive coordinator. Sean Payton didn't have to worry about it. He was worried about being the head coach and developing that offense. The defensive side was handled. Matt Nagy had the same thing with Vic Fangio. Matt Eberflus is going to have to be the head coach. I would like him to have some veteran coordinators to, really ease that transition.
Right. Exactly. Because think of it this way too. Matt Eberflus has never been a head coach on any level. Not high school, not college. He's always been an assistant or a staff member. He's never been a head coach. It'd be nice to if he surrounded himself with guys who were experienced at the jobs they've been at and have been around other coaches. And, even like a guy like Jim Caldwell, I keep coming back to him. He's been a head coach. And, for someone that's never been a head coach before, maybe that kind of presence would be helpful for Eberflus to kind of work into that head coaching position. I don't have any doubt of Eberflus commanding respect from his guys, because it sounds like his guys in the past on the defensive side of the ball in Indianapolis have really respected and listened and responded to him. But, there's more to being a head coach than just garnering the respect of your players. There's a lot more to it, and having guys around you that can maybe help guide you or advise you as you go along, I think would be pretty helpful.
Yeah. And I'm looking at Kevin Patullo, and he was, all right, I'm going to pick things that are NFL only and higher than offensive quality coach, which is basically like an intern. In 2012, he was the assistant wide receivers coach for the Bills. He didn't have a job in 2013. 2014, he was the assistant wide receivers coach for the Titans. Then in 2015 and 2016, he was the quarterback coach for the Jets. Then 2017, he went back to college, where he was an offensive analyst, whatever that is, for Texas A&M.
You didn't score enough points, he wrote.
2018 and 2019, he became the wide receivers coach for the Colts. 2020, he was the pass game specialist for the Colts, whatever that is. And then last year, he was the pass game coordinator for the Eagles, whatever that means. So he has never called plays. He's never been an offensive coordinator before. And he's a young guy. Like, I'm just nervous about that hire.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And somebody made the point earlier today. Do you want the head coach just hiring the guys he knows, his friends, instead of branching out and looking at what could really work for his staff?
Yeah. And Dave Borgonzi is another name that they're talking about. And he he was the defensive quality control coach, whatever that is, for the Buccaneers from 2014 to 2017. And then since 2018, he's been the linebackers coach of the Colts. So again, you're going to be moving somebody up to a much higher level, and people be like, oh, he's been an assistant in the coaching for 15 years. He's really been a real coach since 2018. And so I'm a little nervous there. There is talks. Does he bring a Rod Marinelli with him?
Mm-hmm.
And part of me is like, maybe that works, except for the fact that Rod Marinelli is like 72 years old.
Yeah, Rod Marinelli's up there.
But is that a stopgap where you're like, hey, listen, the coach, this is the system that he wants to run. Rod Marinelli knows, because Rod Marinelli is the one that basically taught him. You bring him in, it eases that transition because he doesn't have to oversee everything so closely on the defensive side. He's able to be a head coach. That's what I want to see, is a first-time head coach bring in veteran coordinators. And, you know, a lot of times you see when a team wins a Super Bowl, you see a bunch of former head coaches being assistants on the team, because they bring the experience of that.
Right.
You
right.
don't, you're like, listen, this guy knows how to coach. They were a head coach in this league. You know, I'm not worried about it, their leadership and their abilities. And that's my concern with having a young, or not a young, but a first-time head coach, and him having, you know, inexperienced people coming up with him, because who does he rely on when he needs support? Is somebody else that's learning their job as well. You bring in a Rod Marinelli. Rod Marinelli's been in this league since, you know, I don't know, I was roaming around in diapers.
Yeah, he's been in the NFL for a very long time.
He's been in the league for a long time. And so you're like, okay, you bring him in, you don't have to worry about the defense so much. And if you need to bounce ideas off, you've got a guy that's been there, done that. And let's see, Rod Marinelli. Defensive line coach of the Buccaneers from 96 to 2001. The assistant head coach and defensive line coach for the Buccaneers, 2002 to 2005. Head coach of the Detroit Lions, 2006 through 2008.
We don't talk about that 2008 season.
He was the assistant head coach and defensive line coach of the Bears, 2009. The assistant head coach and defensive coordinator of the Bears, 2010 to 2012. Defensive line coach for the Cowboys, 2013. Defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, 2014 to 2019. The interim defensive coordinator for the Raiders in 2020. And it's / defensive line coach. He's been the head coach. He's been a defensive coordinator. He's been a defensive line coach. And he's probably going to be out of a job pretty soon when Bisaccia gets fired for the Raiders. So you're like,
well, there's breaking news on that. I don't know if you've been on Twitter. It looks like the Bears are zeroing in on him with Chris Tabor leaving.
I'm not seeing any.
Let me see. Okay. Brad Biggs. With Tabor headed to the Panthers, the Bears are believed to be zeroing in on Rich Bisaccia as their next special teams coordinator.
Huh. So Rich Bisaccia could be, so the Bears would have a former head coach be their special teams coordinator if he gets fired, which
Yes.
he probably will. That's fine. Chris Tabor can be gone. That's fine. I'm not sad.
He's going to the Panthers, so
All right.
yeah,
So I like
there
that.
you go.
Bringing in a guy that was a head coach to be your special teams coordinator. All right. All right. I like that. Now you bring in Marinelli with him, and then you find you Joe Brady, and suddenly you're like, all right, I can be head coach. I can be the head coach now.
And this is why it's so important to judge a head coach when he has his staff together.
Right. Now I wonder who, usually when a head coach comes in, they keep at least one or two of the coaching from the previous staff as a sort of transition, a bridge. And I wonder if it's going to be John DeFilippo.
John DeFlamingo.
DeFlamingo, yes, the Flamingo Flip. I wonder if that'll be the guy that they keep, because I mean he is well liked and he's worked with Justin Fields. Maybe they want to keep that consistency. I doubt they'll keep Sean Desai because he coaches a much different defensive system.
Right.
I highly doubt it's going to be Bill Lazor.
No, it's not going to be a Laser. So RIP all your pew pew jokes.
He'll bring Matt Nagy in as his offensive coordinator.
Now, it's
He
going to
already
be,
knows the guys.
It's going to be Nat Maggie who's going to be the offensive coordinator.
Maybe it'll be Clancy Barone, the tight ends coach.
So we decided to go in house.
It's probably not going to be Juan Castillo, the offensive line coach. I'm thinking John DeFilippo, the quarterback coach. It's definitely not going to be Mike Furry, the wide receiver coach. I can't even think of who else it could be. I think they're just going to clean house.
Which is fine. Let Ryan Poles do what he needs to do to bring in a staff. Do what he wants to do. Don't force anybody upon him. I like Sean Desai, but like you said, there's going to be some differences in philosophy there, to say the least. You look at the style that Eberflus plays on defense versus Sean Desai's, it's pretty different. So let him just bring together his staff.
I don't know what made me think of this, but did you see Olin Kreutz's tweet after they hired Ryan Poles?
No, I did not.
It was something like, congrats, but hold out for more than 15 an hour.
Ooh.
Olin Kreutz is funny.
Yeah, you know what? I love how he's not going to let that go, nor should he.
No, he should
Especially
not.
what Ding Dong George said about it. Don't let it go.
You take what he says with a grain of salt. That's just Olin.
That's just how it is sometimes.
I got my new Bears shoes, my Bears ASIC shoes. So if Olin ever tries to come at me, I can run fast.
Yeah, well, while this was all happening, we said thank you and goodbye to Bill Polian. I gave him his payment, a nice gas card, and I even threw in a Starbucks card in there too. I also gave him a voucher for 20% off at our gift store.
I also had my good friends that own the Cubs give him a 10% off at Gallagher Way for some tchotchkes.
Bill Play's like, what the hell is this?
And I threw it a Marty Havlat crock pot.
Bill Polian just walking out with a Marty Havlat crock pot, just thinking, what the hell do I do with this?
They hand him like one of those like pooper scoopers that you don't have to bend over for. It's got like a handle on it. And like, what is this for? In case you run into Buttercup on the way out.
You'll see her at Gallagher Way too.
Man, I'm really hoping for a good coaching staff under Eberflus. You know, he's not the sexiest of picks, and I know we're gonna have 80% of Bears fans not be able to pronounce his name forever. But I'm gonna give the guy the benefit of the doubt, and really hope that we turn this team around.
That's all we can do right now.
We deserve it.
It's all you can do right now. I mean, look, I respect people's skepticism because frankly, the Bears have earned our right to be skeptical, and it's not something you want to earn. But we have earned that right to be skeptical. The Bears have earned that right to have skepticism given towards them. We've seen all the head coaches. We've seen all the GMs. We've seen all the results. But it's a new era. It's new guard, new people. I like Ryan Poles. You know, I'm not an expert on him, obviously, but I do feel pretty good about him. So, you know, let's hope he made the right hire. And you hope that Eberflus, even in his inexperience as a head coach, ends up being a really good one, you know, and that he hires the right guys. If you have the right staff in place, it makes your job a hell lot easier as a head coach.
And I'm going to be watching the NFL draft very closely. And the bar is set at Kevin White with your very first pick of your GM tenure. And if you beat that, then you've already exceeded Ryan Pace. So the not lofty goals.
I also believe that so far, and we haven't had the press conference yet, so we'll see, but I've yet to hear the word collaboration being thrown around yet.
I don't know if you saw, Bears fans were mad as hell at the pen that Brian Poles was using in the photo that they took.
Okay. I don't want to be mad about that, but I do have this funny image in my head of Ryan Poles sitting down and Ding Dong George is next to him. He's like, hey, George, can I have a pen to sign this? And he goes, yeah. And he's like patting himself, like all his pockets to try to find a pen. And George just runs out to his car and like finds one just sitting at the bottom of his car and runs back in. Here you go. You might need to scratch it against a napkin first.
I took this when I was filling out my quick picks at the gas station.
I don't know if I was able to take it or not. Just don't tell anybody.
It looks like a pen that was attached by a string to a clipboard out in the hallway. He's like, let me just cut this string real quick. You could use that pen.
Oh, sorry. Was this crayon not good enough for you? He's got like he gives him like a purple Crayola crayon to start with. Oh, what? That's not good enough for you? Okay, I'll get you a pen. He goes to his secretary. Hey, sweetheart, you got a pen on you?
Oh, God. He's like, what? This purple crayon was good enough for Harold. It's not good enough for you.
Ding Dong George and the purple crayon.
Oh, I would read that book. Ding Dong George and the purple crayon. Oh my god.
Just imagine the book cover with that goofy smiling George McCaskey face on Harold, and he's got the purple crayon.
He's like, Ryan Pohl is like, hey George, you have a pen? He's like, and he reaches in his jacket and he pulls out one of those 10 colored pens that has, you just click the top with the different colors. And he's like, I got this, but you can't use this bad boy.
This is for me and me only.
You get the Bic, buddy.
It's so funny how people on Twitter, we all made such a big deal out of what he wore to the airport when he picked him up and then the pen he used, but it's so funny to make jokes about it.
It really is. Like, I was just like, man, that jacket. And it was funny. One of my followers was just like, nobody said anything about those shoes. And I just replied, I was like, that's literally the first thing I saw. I was like, look at his Bears Asics. Like, you own the Chicago Bears. Why are you wearing some weird ass Asics shoe? It's like, you should be wearing some real shoes. And with his pants cuffed. Do you think he has somebody iron his jeans?
Probably.
He's like Michael Scott. He takes his jeans to the dry cleaner. George McCaskey really thinks he looks good in those jeans. And then you go through that Michael Scott montage with his jeans. George McCaskey implemented Casual Friday just because he wanted to wear jeans because he thinks he looks good in them.
He's on the receptionist desk, like, dancing around in his jeans.
He's like, I was thinking about calling our stadium Levi's too, because I look good in them. Oh, Georgie Porgy.
Good old Ding Dong George.
Oh, that nickname will never not be funny.
I know. See, now, like, when I talk about like George McCaskey with other people, I just refer to Ding Dong George. I think that's the hardest I ever laughed on this show. We've had a lot of good jokes. I think the hardest I ever laughed on the show was the Marty Havlat crock pot, and the story you told about that Indians pitcher who crawled through the vents of New Comiskey Park to change the bat. Doom, doom, doom.
I'm just picturing like, slapstick comedy. That guy just the air duct can't hold him because it's meant to hold like aluminum, and this 200-pound pitcher just comes crashing through, and everyone just stops what they're doing, is staring at him, and dust is settling. And he just looks like, I was just checking the airflow in there. I think you got black mold.
You might want to do something about that excess dust. I think that filter needs replacing.
I heard rats in the air ducts.
They were quite large, sir. I think that was you. No, it was the rats.
Oh, God. But here we are. This is the latest greatest with the Chicago Bears. We have a general manager in his big pen, and got picked up by Ding Dong George. The only thing that could have been better if George just had an ice cream cone randomly and was just licking it, walking with a lollipop.
A lollipop, and the thing is massive. It's got like that cartoon swirl in the middle of it.
Oh my God. Not even an ice cream cone. One of those push pops where it comes in like the toilet paper tube, and it's like orange, and you just push it from the bottom. He's just opening one of those and licking it.
I loved those orange push pops as a kid, but I can't find them anywhere anymore.
You got to find like the weirdo beardo ice cream man. They have them.
I know, it's a shame because they're so good. You know, I don't know if you remember these two, and I can't find them anymore either. Do you ever remember those smiley pops where they were just like the smiley faces, but like they were like the ice cream ice pops? Like you had like
Yes.
an orange flavor and a yellow flavor.
Yeah, but they never looked like what they did in the package. So, like on the package, it like looked super nice, but you'd open it up and it looked like he had a stroke, like one eye is drooping.
Yeah, it never looked quite like it did on the package. It looked like the Walmart logo.
And they made like Spider-Man ones like that too.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is, you can only find a lot of those at the ice cream truck. So that's why when you actually run into one, you get one, you're like, oh, this is a treat. Because we used to buy them from the store. We used to buy boxes of the Smiley Pops. We bought boxes of the push-ups. You know, we loved those.
These bougie kids nowadays, they don't like to eat their ice cream out of toilet paper tubes.
What do they know?
My kid, we get the ice cream man come and like I'm like ice cream man, and I keep cash on me in the I never keep cash on me, but in the summer now that we get the ice cream man that comes through, I'm like always keep cash just in case. And like my kid and I go running out there, and she's just not impressed by the ice cream man selection. And listen, he's got crappy selection, but you know what? It's the crappy selection of things that I grew up with, so I'm ready and willing to pay him money for those.
Oh, you know, your daughter just needs to experience those because that is summer. You look into one of those push pops or one of those smiley pops or one of those Spider-Man pops or the SpongeBob ones, that's summer. That just tastes like pure summer. And
Or
that
the rainbow rocket.
Yeah. Or a nice Choco Taco. At least you could buy those at the store, and you could buy drumsticks too. But those pops you can only buy at those ice cream trucks now. You gotta get those, and you gotta savor them too, because they just taste like nostalgia. They really do.
Um,
Oh my God, I just had another funny Ding Dong George vision. What if he's walking through the airport and he's got like double bubble and he's blowing massive bubbles, and then he blows one so big it just pops and the whole just bubble just is all over his face. He's going, eh! he's trying to pull the gum off his face.
oh God.
Like just in the middle of the airport, you just going, just with the gum just popped all over his face.
But what we have here, we have the regular ice cream man come through, but we also have the Mexican ice cream man that comes on a bicycle with the ice cream on the front. And you get I think it's pronounced paletas. It is like the Mexican ice cream bars that are made of real fruit. The coconut ones of those are great. I don't know if you've ever had those.
No, we don't get those around our area, and I kind of wish they'd come around because I'd like to try some of that stuff. I know there was one of those because we always just get the truck in our neighborhood. Now, when my grandparents, were still living in their old neighborhood, you had the guy with the push cart and the bell, and you would get like it was like Italian ice, but I think it was like a little thicker than like Italian ice, if you know what I mean. And like you had like a cherry flavor and like a lemon flavor. But we don't get that stuff around me. We just get the ice cream truck.
Yeah, we just started getting like the guy. Sometimes he does the push cart, sometimes on the bicycle cart, but usually it's the ice cream man. But when I used to go up, when I lived in Philly, I'd go up to New York quite a bit. And in New York, they get like the ice cream man has soft serve.
Oh yeah. That's awesome.
Like I was like, what? That's amazing. Why does nobody else have that?
I gotta assume there's got, I'm sure if it's in a machine, it's fine, but soft serve is obviously different than regular ice cream. So you got to keep it differently. You don't have them in tubs and scoop them out. You got to have it in that machine. Yeah, I just wonder if it's costly to bring that around. I don't know.
I think they were called I want to say it was Mr. Softy. I think that's what they were called. Mr. Softy.
I mean, when I think of soft serve ice cream, I think of like Culver's frozen custard. I think of Dairy Queen. That's when I think of when I hear soft serve.
Yeah, Mr. Softy. It was yeah, he had like the regular, like, yeah, you could get like the the regular ice cream that you can get from an ice cream truck, but then he had like sundaes and soft serve.
Yum.
You get cones and sundaes and shakes.
That sounds excellent.
Yeah, that's one plus for New York.
There you go. We'll give you that one, New York. Soft serve ice cream trucks. Okay, question for you. I go out to Bloomingdale sometimes, just in that area, and I've seen several Dairy Queens and Orange Julius, and my mom would tell me about Orange Julius. Now, the Dairy Queens around me, I've got several. They don't have Orange Julius. What is Orange Julius? Because I've never actually had it.
So the closest so there was actually a different chain that I want to say Dairy Queen bought. But an Orange Julius is like a mixture of ice, orange juice. It's got like this sweetener stuff, milk, egg whites, and vanilla flavoring. So it's
does it taste like ice cream? Does it have the ice cream consistency?
It's like it's somewhere between soft serve and slushy. It is
like a smoothie.
Kind of. It's like if you got orange juice flavored ice soft serve.
Okay.
It's not bad. It's not my favorite, but it's not bad. We used to have one in the mall by my house. They had an Orange Julius stand in the middle of the food court. But I didn't know they were still around.
Yeah, they're all combined with Dairy Queens, the ones I've seen.
Let me find where my nearest Orange Julius is, because I have not had one in 25 years.
Yeah, because my mom would say, when she was younger, she's like, yeah, every mall you go to, there'd be an Orange Julius stand.
Yeah, they'd be in the mall. And my mom was a big Orange Julius fan. I was like, well, if I'm gonna get I'm just gonna get ice cream while I'm there. Ooh, there's one at Irving and Southport. There's one in Niles. These are okay. They're all Dairy Queen locations. So yeah, like there's one in like near Wrigley. There's another one in Niles. There's another one in Lincoln Park. And then the next closest one is Bensonville near Victory Auto Wreckers. And then the next closest one, there's one in Elmhurst.
Oh, they did just open up a new Dairy Queen. They must have an Orange Julius there as well. They just opened it.
143 North York Street in Elmhurst.
Yeah, that's right downtown. That's right in the middle of downtown. I knew they opened a Dairy Queen there, but I didn't know it was an Orange Julius as well. That's good to know. I might have to try one. Yeah, because that location, for any of you Elmhurst people, it was Meatheads for a while. It was a burger place, and then they said they were going to be opening up the Dairy Queen there, and they recently opened up the Dairy Queen, and I knew it was there. I walked by it. I just never noticed that was an Orange Julius as well.
Yeah, tomorrow I might have to go get an Orange Julius, because there's one that's Southport, and it's probably, I don't know, like a 10-15 minute drive from me. I might have to go get one.
I might have to try one soon.
Yeah. Official taste testing of the Swerski show. We're all going to get Orange Julius's.
All right. I dig it. It'll be like your younger days, because as my mom said, like they used to be very prevalent. Go to the mall, there'd be an Orange Julius. Like today, you go to a mall, you have a Mrs. Fields or an Aunt Annie's.
Yeah, it's kind of like an orange whip without the alcohol.
Yeah.
Orange whip, orange
Orange
whip,
whip,
orange whip,
orange
three
whip.
orange whips.
Rest in peace, John Candy.
Oh, John Candy is literally the best.
He's
Like-
god tier of comedians.
Like, honestly, one of my all-time favorite movies is Uncle Buck.
Yes. Yes.
Uncle Buck is a flawless movie. There is nothing wrong with that movie. It is hilarious from top down, and like you can't beat Uncle Buck.
Ever hear of a ritual killing?
Here's a quarter. I want you to go downtown and have a rat gnaw that thing off your face.
I love when they're in the bowling alley and that sleazy guy goes up to Tia and he tries like turning his toothpick in his mouth. He starts like choking
And he's choking on it. He turns away. He's like, oh man.
That's why they call me pal.
Oh, that movie is so good.
Maybe it's this hat. The sight of this just angers people.
Get in your mouse and get out of here.
What are you, Mother Cabrini? You never touch this stuff?
Oh, Uncle Buck. Why is that movie so good?
Because John Candy is just a legend and John Hughes is a legend, and they were both gone way too soon.
John Candy gone way too soon. It's sad.
Him and Planes, Trains, Automobiles as well. He was just wonderful in that role.
The exchange between Buck and Macaulay Culkin is great. Where do you live? In the city. You have a house, apartment, own or rent. Rent. What do you do for a living? Lots of things. Where's your office? I don't have one. How come? I don't need one. Where's your wife? Don't have one. How come? It's a long story. You have kids? No, I don't. How come? Even longer story. Like, that is such a good exchange.
What's your record for consecutive questions?
38.
That's impressive. I'm a kid. It's my job. And that kind of gave Macaulay Culkin his boost. The next thing you knew, he was Kevin McAllister.
Oh, I know.
And John Candy, when he was Gus Polinski in that movie, Polka King of the Midwest. It's such a small role, but it was such a funny one.
Polka King of the Midwest.
Polka, 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 polka.
Oh, man.
No, in Sheboygan. Very big in Sheboygan.
Man. So, yeah, here we are. We Bears fans, we've got our guys, and love them or hate them, they're who we're with, and we ride in a battle with these guys. Put your pitchforks away for at least give them 2 seasons to figure out what we have before we start coming to blasting.
Yep. And if the rumors are true about their first new coaching hire, that's a pretty good start in building a staff.
Definitely. Anything else you want to talk about?
Not too much. I mean, the Bulls are in survival mode. The Blackhawks aren't good. Though it was an entertaining game in Detroit with 8-5. It was like a throwback game, but I don't really have much else.
The one nice thing about the Blackhawks, the Blackhawks are stink, but at least they were able to kick the Red Wings in the ding ding and give them a doozy.
Ding, ding. Yeah, no, I mean, it was fun. You score 4 goals in the first period, 4 goals in the third period. You always like beating your old rivals, even though you don't play them as much anymore and neither team are Stanley Cup contenders right now. But, It's a rivalry game. It was good to win. It was also good for the Bulls to win their last game too. You know, you had a lead, you blew it, you had another lead, and then it got close again, but you're able to pull it out in the end. And, you know, not having guys like Caruso and Ball are obviously really, really hurting on the defense, which stinks. But hey, I do want to mention this quickly as well. Congratulations to DeMar DeRozan on being an all-star starter. Well deserved.
Yes. And congratulations to Io DeSumo. Like that guy should be considered in the running for Rookie of the Year.
Oh, he's been a pleasure to watch. He's been an absolute pleasure. And every day he builds his legacy. Every day. I mean, that game he had in OKC, oh, it was awesome. It was awesome.
And I don't know if you saw the Io DeSumo Avia shirt.
I did.
I'm like, that's a good one. I might actually order that one. Actually, most of those obvious shirts, they Clark Street Sports has them in their Lawrence Avenue storefront.
They got a few too in the Yorktown Center as well.
Yeah, they've got one in the mall by my house, but they usually don't have a ton of the obvious shirts. But Clark Street Sports has their big location is on Lawrence, not far from my house, and they've got, like, the store is big. I went there for Christmas. I bought my nephews in Philadelphia because I'm not going to buy them Philadelphia things. I bought them Bulls gear. But they had a bunch of the obvious shirts there, and they had like some for each team. But I'm like, I might go up there and see if they have the Io DeSumo one, because that one's pretty cool. The Chic Io.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. And I mean, hey, kid from Chicago, it fits.
Definitely. And, you know, the Bulls, with all these injuries, you're right, survival mode. It's essentially all they need to do is just stay afloat, win as many games as they can, beat the bad teams, try to eke out a few from the good teams, stay in that 3 to 5 seed range if you can.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then when everybody's healthy, come playoff time, then, see what you can put together. But, we're coming up on the trade deadline. I mean, what is that, in like 2 weeks? I think exactly 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. And, I was a little nervous about what the Bulls were going to do, but before all the injuries, because they needed to add some front court depth, but at this point you need front court depth because you just didn't have a ton on the roster, especially with Pat Williams being hurt, but even before that. And now you need backcourt depth just because of injuries. And I feel like the Bulls are not going to pull off a big trade just because they just don't have the ammunition.
I agree.
You're in a spot where you can't afford to trade Kobe White.
Not now. I mean, you need someone to man that position.
And you're not going to trade Pat Williams because of the injuries and, just being so young. You're going to get pennies on the dollar for trading him.
No, and you could end up giving away what could be a valuable asset.
Yeah, and we don't know what his ceiling is, but we also know that we're not going to give him up for nothing, for
right.
a rental. So I think the Bulls, maybe somebody gets bought out of a contract and they pick somebody up as a free agent. I just don't see them making any big splashes with the trade deadline.
No, I don't either. Either.
And I'm okay with that. And listen, I'm all for going all in and when it's necessary, but I don't think this is going to be their year. Too many things have happened. Just ride it out, see what you do in the postseason with this roster, and then use the off season to make trades or use free agent money and try to fill whatever holes you have that way.
Right. No, I agree. I'm with you on that. Don't try to mortgage what you can't.
Yeah, because I mean, you look at the guys that they've been, that they've been linked to, and I'm just like, who are they going to trade in order to get that player?
Right. I mean, unless you pull off some 3-team trade, but it's still, that's hard to do.
Yeah. So I'm, if you get somebody, so a veteran that gets bought out, or, you can get some low level, bodies to fill minutes. Maybe I just don't want to rock the boat or mortgage the future for that.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Or for Alex, follow Alexander J. Pat Creative.com for all of the awesome things that Alex does. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Dick and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears! Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.